one of my frequent instructions with shooters is to shoot the ball as high as possible. Now, that's not my end goal, is not to create a shot where they're shooting the ball as high as they possibly can. It's a method of instruction and that I've always used as a way to use an external form of instruction as opposed to a more internal instruction or cue where I might tell the player, finish with your elbow higher, which would be trying to accomplish the same goal of creating more arc on the shot, but it would be an internal instruction which has been shown to break down under pressure more than an external instruction or cue. So I try to use the external ones, and that's kind of how I've thought of the instruction: shoot the ball as high as you possibly can. There's also another reason that this might be an effective instruction. So in the concept of differential learning by Wolfgang Schoellhorn, a professor from Germany, he talks about increasing variability within a skill to allow the player to naturally find his or her optimal technique. And so by increasing variability, it's more likely that the player will find the optimal technique because there's a greater range through which the player can find an acceptable solution. Whereas what typically happens in practice is a player comes in and they shoot with some form of technique, and the first thing that a coach does is to reduce the variability. And so the player learns to shoot from a very narrow range of options. So from the starting point to a even more controlled or more coordinated or less variable technique. And so there's not a wide range of potential solutions. And so in some ways, this could explain why changing a player's shot becomes difficult, because we're trying to make slight changes, and so there's very little fluctuation or perturbations in the system, and so the player will naturally kind of fall back towards their previous technique or what's more comfortable or what's become stable for them. If we increase the variability and we get the player far beyond or far past what their normal technique is, it's harder for them, one, to slide back into their more comfortable or more stable technique, and two, there becomes a wider range of potential options between their previous technique and the exaggerated or the more variant technique. And so again, I use this primarily because it's an external cue, but I also do use it because I want to create an environment where the player can find his or her optimal solution. And so to me, somewhere between where they're currently shooting and a shot that's taken that's trying to get the ball as high as possible is going to be the optimal solution. And so rather than trying to make gradual progressions to get their elbow slightly higher, slightly higher, slightly higher, I instruct and give them the idea, just shoot the ball as high as possible, and now they see a greater change from where they started with to after the instruction, and then they slowly kind of reduce back towards their more stable skill, and we'll find someplace, hopefully we'll find someplace in the middle that becomes the stable skill or what they feel comfortable with. And so I think it has two potential explanations why this has been an effective instruction for me to use with players. The one is it's an external cue, but then also it's adding variability and giving the player the opportunity to find the optimal solution within a greater range of potential solutions. So there's a greater opportunity for the player to find the one that actually is the optimal for his or her body.